In today's show, Rich Stayman from Mavs Draft and Locked On NBA Big Board joins the program, and we talk all things Blazers draft prospects. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. Today's episode, a very special one, joined by my friend Rich Stayman. You've seen him on Locked On NBA Big Board podcast right here on the network. And you've probably read him on mavsdraft.substack.com. And if you haven't, go there. You'll get breakdowns of the latest prospects. You'll get his latest big board and coverage of everything, including this week when he's at the pit, baby, the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. Getting ready to see some of the best collegiate seniors ahead of the NBA Draft Combine. Rich, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. It's good to be back. And I also just realized your last name and my first name is like a blend of my first and last name. Never really. Yeah. So it's like destiny.
Yes, true. Yeah, perfect synergy here on Locked On Blazers. So yes, this show's coming out. This is you're listening, everyone. Thank you for listening to Thursday, April 18th show. And on Tuesday evening, the Warriors officially out of the playoffs, which means the Blazers are very likely to have 2 lottery picks. There's like a 3.5% chance, a little less than 3.5% chance that the Warriors jump up into the top 4, and the Blazers are left with just one measly draft pick, and they'll roll over to 2025. But for the purposes of today's show, I want to assume that the Blazers have 2 lottery picks and that they have a pick at, we'll call it 3 and 13. So, Rich, I want to pitch you some guys, and you tell me if they would be worth it at 3 and worth it at 13, or if they are either somewhere or sort of where you view them in that lens. Let's start with someone who, if they're there at 13 or they're at 3, I bet the Blazers will be pretty excited. He's at the top of most big boards. What is Alex Sarr?
Yeah, Alex Sarr is he's my number one. Like you said, top of most big boards. He's a do-it-all center. He's 7'1", very mobile, can guard multiple positions, defends the rim well, has shooting upside, can see the floor very well. So he's like that modern 5, right? He has a lot of similarities actually to DeAndre Ayton as a pre-draft prospect. Not as polished, in my opinion, but the upside is pretty similar.
Can he rebound at an NBA level? I feel like that's the knock on him. Do you think he can rebound in the NBA?
So rebounding usually is the easiest thing to translate 1-to-1, right? From any level to the next jump, right? But with Sarr, I think for him, he played with another bruiser alongside him, and I think that hurt his rebounding numbers. But great rebounders still find a way. So that might be where the big weakness comes in. I think it's tough to see without, him being the lone big on the floor. I think that will help him a lot.
Can he play power forward in the NBA?
That's going to depend on if that jump shot opens up. So if he can really turn into that shooter, because right now it's a little hypothetical, but we've seen a lot of flashes of him shooting from 3. That's when I think we'll know, is he a 4 or 5 or just a 5?
In your opinion, like, I think there's not really consensus at the top. Sarr seems to be mostly the player that guys have at the top, but I think there's people, smart people across the board who have different names that I'm sure we will get to here. What is sort of, before we get back to Sarr, like, what is your view of this draft class as a whole? It is a down year, but what does that mean to you?
Yeah, there's no franchise-changing talent. There's absolutely none. At least at the top, like projected. Alex Sarr is the closest I could find. I think you're getting a lot of, and that's not to be saying like there are star caliber players that in terms of upside. It's not only that the volume of those guys is low, but also the chances of those guys really hitting that ultimate ceiling, it just feels very low based on all the scouting we've done and just comparing it to previous years. And also it doesn't help that we just have arguably the best draft since 2018 right in front of us. So, and sandwiched into a next one's going to be great too. So it really matches that perception.
What does Sarr need to do to hit his ceiling?
I think it comes down to that toughness, which goes into rebounding and that 3-point shooting. Like if that can become consistent, he's going to win at the rim on both ends. He's going to be able to keep making plays. Like those things are staples in his game. It's getting that consistency as a 3-point shooter, closing out possessions, and just making opposition intimidated by his presence.
You think he's the number 1 pick in June? I mean, we're recording this in the middle of April.
Yeah.
Do you think he's the number 1 pick?
Just looking at the top, I mean, the only team that maybe doesn't take him is Detroit, but they haven't. Like the only reason is
stop taking centers now. Why would they stop now? They have so many. Just keep going.
We saw it worked for the Sixers, not entirely, but one of them hit. Like those 3 centers, Okafor, Noel, and Embiid. Maybe the same thing will apply for Detroit, but I don't love that fit. But also,
right?
I don't know. You kind of got to take the swings for the fences, especially where they are. You know.
Yeah, I think fit matters a lot for good teams, like or even like medium level teams, where it's like, hey, we don't want to clog up. We have good players that this young person would play behind, but when you're bad, you just got to try to add talent, and then you're like, okay, if this guy's better than Jalen Duren, that's a thing we'll solve in the future. And for the Blazers, I feel the same way. It's like, I don't think they have a single player on the roster that you should worry about drafting over. And that includes Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. If you see a guard or a wing type that is really good and you feel like he can be really good, I don't think the Blazers have no one has shown enough talent to worry about drafting over them. Could it be a problem down the line? Absolutely. Absolutely. It could be a problem down the line. You might end up having a Monte Ellis, Tyrese Halliburton situation. And I think you hope that you get the Monte Ellis part right and not the Tyrese Halliburton part wrong. But like, for me, I think for bad teams, you just have to go best player available, period. Are you there, or am I? Because I know Rafael Barlow, our friend, he's a fit guy, so he always tells me I'm wrong about this.
I think it always depends, right? If you are the Spurs, Wembanyama can play with another big, so they should absolutely be taking anybody, right?
Right.
There are teams I would prefer if Portland didn't take a guard, just because, like you said, all the guys, right? Like they've taken so many investments in young guards. Let that play out for at least a second. Next year you can do it, right? Like let's give it one more year before just stockpiling. I grew up a Magic fan. I get it. I see it. I saw what happened. They had drafted all the guards, and now it's kind of everybody has a role, but not everything's there. I think it depends. Mostly, yes, talent it fits, but sometimes fit needs to complement talent.
Yeah, well, I can see the argument for it. Like, I can see the argument for it. Like, why would you crowd Scoot Henderson? If you believe in him, you have to believe in him. Like, if you believed in him last June, you have to believe in him this June because you drafted him at 19, right? Like you didn't, even if he struggled. So I could see the argument for it. Okay, another name, and tell me 3 or 13 here. A dude who's rising up the draft boards. ESPN loves him. Donovan Clingan.
Ooh, I would take him at 3. I'm a big fan. I think you look at a paint controller on defense in an absolute, just really an interior presence on both ends of the floor. He's not a liability on defense to switch. Not necessarily great, but he's not going to be Enes Kanter on the perimeter, right? So it's somewhere like he's actually capable. He's extremely intelligent. I think one of the things I look for in big men that are young is, a lot of big men in the NBA in general are very turnover prone. Donovan Clingan just absolutely isn't. And part of that is, so much talent around him. At UConn, the system was perfect. But like, it's an NBA system with NBA talent. Why would that not translate up? So I'm a big fan.
It strikes me that you're drafting Steven Adams, number 3 overall, right? Like, I feel like that's my worry, is that he's so limited on offense. He can pass the way Steven Adams can pass, and and Adams has been such a great offensive rebounder that he's made some really good offensive teams just by creating extra possessions over the last decade. But I worry that in today's league, a center who can't score outside of 4 feet is a problem. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I'm a believer in his hear me out. I think his free throw shot is better than the percentage you give credit for. And I'm a big believer in free throw percentage leading to eventual shooting upside. If he can shoot 10 to 15 footers, it changes everything for him. I also do think he has a little bit more skill than Adams does at the rim. Like, he has a really mean drop step. And I think that's a really strong weapon, especially as he gets, the NBA is full of switches. You're going to get wings and guards on you. And he's 7'1", 7'2". let him do some work there. I don't think he's all hope lost in terms of offensive skill for what it's worth.
Early on, like particularly early in the tournament when he was still like projected to go in like the 14 range, I'm like, he rocks, and now he's projected to go 3, and I'm like, hold on, so it's like some of it is just like maybe my sort of like, if I liked him at 14, why wouldn't, if I thought he was going to be a good NBA player at 14 and the draft is wide open, maybe I should still like him as a good NBA player at 3. But I worry that you gotta, I think for me, like, and you're way more plugged into this than I am. I worry that his upside is relatively limited. So it's like, you're going to end up, you might have to end up with a really solid NBA player, but if you draft a really solid NBA player at 3, the Blazers just need bigger swings. For me, I would rather them take a bigger swing, but that's like specific to this team, not to like Clingan's overall ability to be an impact player relative to the draft class and all those things.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there's upside in terms of like he can easily go from a very good, great defender at the rim to elite. And I think that's super valuable. Same thing on the offensive end. I think he could be a guy that flirts with 65+% at the rim. Like, he is that level of good. And I think he'd be killer in the pick and roll. Like, I really do think as he irons that out, that's where the game opens up for everybody else around him.
Yeah, I mean, he's gigantic and he can move a little bit, and that is always will work in the league. If being really big with a little bit of the ability to move a little bit laterally is valuable. Okay, I got a couple other names, including some wings that might be available at the top of the draft. Let's talk about that in the second segment, including a Frenchman and a dude who played in the G League. Well, join us in that second segment, won't you? Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. It's a classic twist on the Monopoly game you love. It's been downloaded over 150 million times, and you're playing not just on one Monopoly board, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. And the best part is you can mess with your friends who play along too. The mobile game that's interactive and fun. You can charge your friends rent for staying on iconic properties just like you could in classic Monopoly, but also you can heist their vaults to collect some riches, and you can check the leaderboards to show who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is in real time. If you don't want to just feed your competitive side, you could team up with your friends and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game. Join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now on the App Store or on Google Play. All right, still chatting here with Rich Stayman. You've read him over at mavsdraft.substack.com, and you've seen him on the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. Check out their YouTube channel 5 days a week and everywhere you get podcasts, just like this show. Okay, Rich, I got more names for you. Zaccharie Risacher. He's been a guy I think I've seen all over, as high as 1 and as low as like 11. What's going on with Risacher? How do you view him?
Yeah, he's purely an off-ball player on both ends. I'm not a huge fan, like, just starting off with the offense. I don't think he's much of a creator, both for himself and others. I think that's a big limitation for him. And for that reason, I don't understand the hype at him going top 2, top 3, really. But his shooting is very real. His ability to go full speed stop on the perimeter, catch and shoot, and have perfect footwork is unmatched in this class, I think. At least at the top. And on top of that, his defense is really special. Like, his off-ball defense, he's going to make everybody around him better on that end. I think that combination of, if you got a 3-and-D guy who's pretty young, he has ball skills, but I just don't know if he knows how to win one-on-one matchups. That's kind of my reservation. I think he's somebody easily worth investing in if you know that, 1, you have another pick like Portland does, and 2, if you know that you either have your franchise talent already or you want to swing next year, like Portland probably will. Right. I think he goes really hand in hand with that. Is he a relatively high floor guy because of the shooting and defense, or do you still see some? Okay. Yeah. I have likened him to a friend. I've said that when I watch him play, he's French Rashard Lewis, and I joked. I just like, if Rashard Lewis goes number 1, if French Rashard Lewis goes number 1 in this draft, like anything is truly possible for the modern NBA. But like, do you, like, as you mentioned, the creation stuff, do you worry that he tops out as a role player? Is that the real? Yeah, I think he could easily start, like, for what it's worth, but He's never going to be somebody who flirts with an all-star game. He's never going to be somebody who, I don't know if he ever gets to like all defense level. It's like that exact thing, right? Where it's like, he's very good already. Will he ever be elite at any one of those skills? Maybe the shooting. I think that's a real chance. The defense has a chance, I guess, but I'd be shocked if he makes multiple like all defense teams, which isn't necessarily a knock on him, but there's requirements too now, like we've seen with all the ever changing stuff with the pallets. But yeah, I just feel like he's going to be very good at a lot of stuff and not any great thing outside of the shooting.
Yeah, and for me, I think that's where I keep landing with my sort of preference for where the Blazers go, is that I would lean towards taking a bigger swing. Risacher seems to fit almost exactly what they need. In terms of like, if you just like look at the roster, it's like, could they use a big wing who can shoot and defend? Hell yeah. Like, obviously that's what they need. But if he tops out as like, and Rashard Lewis made a lot of money in the NBA. He got a $160 million contract. So it's like legend at the bank, was a good player on a team that made the NBA finals. Like I am, it's not that big of an insult, I don't think, but like for me, I would try for the Blazers. I would try to lean on someone who you feel more comfortable with achieving a higher ceiling, even if you know that the floor is way lower. But like you said, maybe if he's at 3 and Sarr's off the board, whoever it might be is off the board, and he's like, we really like him and we like the defense and we like the shooting and we know we're going to get another stab at it at 12, 13, or 14, depending on where the Warriors pick ends up for this exercise, 13. Then yeah, I think you've talked me into sort of that logic of it. Okay, another guy I know you like, but he's everywhere on the board. Ron Holland. I saw him play one game for the G League Ignite, and my number one takeaway was that he's like 6'4". He's just not that tall. I thought he was 6'8". He's listed as 6'8" in the program. He was announced as 6'8" on the Jumbotron or on the PA system, and then he comes out and I'm like, oh, that dude's like 6'5" maybe. I've seen him really high. I've seen him as a number one on people's boards still. And I've seen guys who have him in the very end of the lottery. He seems to be everywhere. Is he a 3 or 13 guy for you?
At this rate, he's tracking to go to 13. I think, though, when we, like, in the next 3 weeks, when the combine and everything pops up, I think we're going to be talking about somebody who's back safely in that top 7. Like, top 6 to 8, I would say. I still have him as my number 2. I'm holding on to a few things. One, the Ignite was not favorable to anybody this year. And a large reason was they didn't have a point guard. Like he's a guy I think that easily is one of the biggest beneficiaries of having a point guard to easily set him up on the perimeter as a cutter. They didn't have that. On top of that, like you said, yeah, he's not 6'8". That lie, I don't know how that gets spread. I've seen him since junior year of high school in Dallas because he's from similar area. Right. And yeah, he tops out at 6'6", maybe 6'7" if, I mean, JJ Barea was 6 feet, and that's not true. So anybody can be 6'7", I guess. But my big thing with him is he has so much talent, so much skill that we've seen in every other level turn into real success. Why did it not work there where everybody failed? It's hard to blame just him, right? Like there were 4 first-round prospects on that team, and none of them exceeded or even lived up to expectations. So I'm still in on Holland. I think that wing upside is he's a perfect kind of player that you gamble on at either 3 or 13 and hope that he turns into the star.
What is it that gives him the star upside? What's the skill set that you make you feel comfortable about him there?
Yeah, I see eventually that jump shot really turning around. He had a poor percentage. I want to say it was in like high 20s for 3-point percentage, but the free throw percentage looks good. The form is very clean. Like I think that's something that'll easily get worked out. He's a dynamic athlete. I think he'll be able to finish really well at the rim, play strong defense. And overall, like I buy that mid-range coming around. Like he's really showed some crazy off the dribble shots and just setups too that I think are consistent and repeatable. I really like that. So I buy him being a two-way, 3-level scorer kind of guy, which is obviously very high upside.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's like a true wing. Like he could play 2 or 3 in the NBA and be fine at it. In the one game I saw, he had 30. And he was pretty obviously the best player on the floor, but he also shot like a knuckleball 3 that almost landed like ledgy style, caught on the backboard. And it's like, oh, that's gross. And then he makes spin moves in traffic and finishes around 2 people through contact. And you're like, Oh, okay. I kind of see it. According to the stats page on the G League's website, this is only for the games played after the showcase. He shot 24% from three and 76% from the free throw line. I think the shooting is a concern. Do you think he could be a playmaker? Do you think he's someone who could pass?
Yeah. So that goes hand in hand with the shot. It's consistent.
Sure.
The decision making randomly, just he'll see two guys on him and go, you know, it'd be perfect. A layup over both of them instead of just kicking it out. But when he actually is making those right reads and realizes I should be looking to pass, not looking to score, he's a very sharp playmaker. It's just getting that consistent. And he's 18 years old. Like, it's not going to be perfect in the G League. He's still he's the youngest player in the G League, I think. So it's not going to be easy.
What's going to get ironed out at the combine? You mentioned the combine that's coming up here. Like, what's going to change for him, and what's going to change for some other folks, I guess?
Yeah, so this doesn't necessarily have to do with his game in particular. It's the new rules of everybody. If you are at the combine, you have to participate. There's no more like agencies will hold their guys out. There's no more of that. Like the top 20 guys, top 25, actually, even last year, like pre-combine, the top like consensus top 35 to 40, none of them played in the scrimmages. Very few of them did any testing. They never did any drills. They were just there to interview. And the NBA put a halt to that. And I think that's going to help guys like Ron Holland, who really need something where they may not have to play. I don't know if they can come up with like bogus injuries, anything like that. But if he measures well, if he tests well, I think people will go, okay, maybe we're overthinking this a little bit, like in terms of GMs. And maybe they're overthinking. But there is, upside for him to grow in terms of draft stock.
Sure. Okay, I got a couple more names for you. Let's close out the show with two more prospects, including a teenager from Serbia and a young guard from Kentucky. Join us in that third segment, won't you? Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA. It's playoff time in the NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Still chatting here with Rich Stayman. You've seen him on Locked On NBA Big Board, and you can read all his work at mavsdraft.substack.com. Rich, I got another name for you, Nikola Topic. He's a dude who was up way high in the draft boards and now kind of seems to be in that mid-lottery, in that 4 through 9 range. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I buy him, like his upside. He's very unique because he's like a 6'6", 6'7" guard. His jump shot, kind of going back to Ron Holland, it comes out flat. Like that shot does not come out easy, but the free throw percentage is very high. I think it's north of 80%, and that's really promising. I buy his finishing. It just really comes down to putting it all together. Like when you watch him, something just feels off. And I can't really describe it, but the defense isn't great. And the jump shot, like this is one of the prime examples of, is this an exception to the rule? Usually free throw percentage has a very strong hit rate, but jump shot success at the next level, when you watch him shoot, it just doesn't match. So that's going to be where the question marks come in, is can he put it all together and be that lead guard?
Yeah, can a primary creator not shoot? I think that's the real question. Even guys like, even non-shooters like say Ja Morant, like is sort of like considered a non-shooter, but he can shoot. He shoots below league average from 3, but he has a really good in between game, and his pull up is scary enough that it changes the way he gets defended. Topic is obviously bigger than Ja, but he's not jumping over everyone like Ja is. It's what held back De'Aaron Fox from being a really good player for a long time. Is he just didn't have the pull-up game. He did not have the pull-up game early in his career to be a threat. When he added more pull-up jump shooting, first from the mid-range and then further out from 3, he's like making all NBA teams and getting to like true nod as an all-star snub. I like Topic because I think I'm watching like YouTube highlights. I don't think I've ever seen him miss a shot. But I like their creativity off the bounce. Like I think he's a really, really he has good pace and good feel as a passer. Is what is his upside in the league? What is the sell on him being a star in the NBA?
Yeah, I think it turns from him going from a point forward like he is now to a true lead guard, and as a big lead guard. And that label, it matters, right? And if he can be that lead guard who can counter the fact that he doesn't finish athletically at the rim, like in terms of dunks and things like that, and become a good shooter, the defense won't matter because he's going to struggle on that end a lot. If he can be that complete all-around offensive player, I think he becomes a very, very successful NBA player.
He won't be on the board at 13. Would you take him at 3?
I mean, he'd be the biggest guard in Portland, right?
Delano Banton, but yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Shout out Delano. He had a killer garbage time season. You know,
he did. He was incredible once they stopped trying to win. He was really, he had some fun games.
Maybe Delano Banton could be a mentor for him. That's what I would say. But it would be good to have like a size. Like if you're going to take a guard, you don't want another 6'3" guard. Take somebody who's 6'6", 6'7". That's a chance you take. Like we were talking about in the first segment. Like if you're going to take a chance at a guard and say, you know what, screw the fit, let's just take the best talent. That's the guy you do it on.
Sure. Okay. I think I agree with that. Let me ask you about a 6'3" guard just to follow that up. What's the hype on Reed Sheppard? People love Reed Sheppard. They love Reed Sheppard. I'll probably watch him play 4 times, maybe 4 in some change games, parts of some other games for Kentucky. I never saw a dude who was a top 5 pick in the NBA. Really good college player, had some awesome games when I watched. I never saw it. What am I missing, Rich?
Yeah. So first of all, is that not like the best segue you've ever had?
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it.
I didn't even completely unintentional. No, with Reed Sheppard. So I have Reed Sheppard in my top 3 because I think he's one of the safest players. Now, I would absolutely not take him in Portland, even though he'd be a great complimentary piece. He's not a point guard. This is like the big knock on him. He's 6'3" and he's not a point guard, right? He's going to get hunted on defense. But the analytics, like he's an analytical darling. And it's actually not just like, oh, the analytics like him. The eye test doesn't. The eye test loves him too. He's the best shooter, honestly, in college basketball that I've seen come through as a freshman. He's got to be number 1. He made over half of his threes on extremely high volume. Like that alone.
And shot him in a bunch of different ways. Yeah, like he shot him off movement, shot him off the bounce. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is insane. Like you get, there's sometimes you get the 45% guys that go to like Oakland, who they lost to, and they literally have it, and they don't do anything else. But Reed Sheppard, even his worst games, he had a couple, I think, 0 and 2-point games, and he still looked incredible. He was forcing turnovers. Like his hands are some of the best in the country. He's just ridiculously smart on defense, and he gets the game. He makes everybody around him better on both ends. And I think when you do that and you're a high level shooter, he's not going to shoot 50% in the NBA. But if you're a high-level shooter that makes everybody around you better and you're young and you can grow those ball skills, there's a real argument to being a top 5 pick in a bad class.
Right. Can he become a point guard?
I think so. I'm just going to give Kentucky benefit of the doubt here. It's every time we always see it, we're like, are they a guard? And rightfully so, especially with Reed Sheppard. But he's actually a very good decision maker. I think that actually just comes down to ball skills being fully developed more than decision making.
I do think it's a real bummer for the draft community that we've lost the Calipari math, where it's like, well, this dude's probably 30% better than we've seen. like whoever this guy is, what did he do in college? Where'd he go? Oh yeah, he's probably like 30. He's probably at least 30% better than he looks at Kentucky because he's finally free. So maybe Arkansas will produce a bunch of pros. I'm sure Cal will get them there, but like there's nothing like the last decade of Kentucky basketball prospects to be like Jamal Murray, he's going to be better. Tyrese Maxey, he's going to be better. Devin Booker, he's going to be better. Bam Adebayo, he's like, it's just, but you can run down the list. Cal has a gift. It's really special. Do you think Reed will be any chance he's available at 13? Any chance what's his floor? 0. You think he's gone? 0. Okay.
I would be shocked if he's there past 7, 8.
Wow.
8 is a very, very bad case scenario. I think he would have to measure so poorly that teams go, you know what, we can't even. I don't even think that would change anything. Like he's expected to have bad measurements. It wouldn't be a shock.
Right, and the tape is there, and he's a bucket. Like I said, I watched enough good games in college, and I was like, he's good. I just never said like this dude is a top 5 pick, and then all of a sudden the hype is like. There was a brief period where he was maybe the first pick in the draft, which is, I mean, respect. Maybe he's going to be really good, and I'll come back and I'll say, man, remember back in April of 2024 when I was so wrong about Reed Sheppard, and we could replay the pod and we'll know. I wouldn't be surprised he has a good NBA career. I'm missing the upside.
Fair.
Rich, thank you so much for joining the program. Enjoy your long weekends in Portsmouth, and we'll have you back on maybe post NBA draft combine and get more of your thoughts. If folks are looking for more of your stuff, where can they find it?
Yeah, I've recently moved over to Substack. So mavsdraft.substack.com, and then I'm on Locked On NBA Big Board as well.
All right, that's where you go find him. Come back for tomorrow's show. It's the Haters Guide to the Playoffs, our second annual Haters Guide. You're not going to want to miss it. It's how to root against every team in the playoffs. Nobody hates like this. Tell your friends about the show. That's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts. I'll talk to you soon.